Have you seen the prices of a new car these days? It's almost $50,000, and the average American's payment is almost $800 a month. Even if you take out luxury cars, the average price for a non-luxury car is still almost $40,000, and that's a lot of money. Now, I was just talking to a friend of mine who bought a 2020 Honda Civic for $28,000.
Oh yeah, it's a steal. I got low miles.
I mean, I couldn't believe it. It was 2 years old. It had like 10,000 miles on it. And I remember buying my Honda Civic in 2003 for $14,000 out the door. Same model pretty much. And I just can't believe how expensive these cars have become.
Everything is so expensive.
I mean, my point should be, if you only buy a car that you can afford and one that fits within your budget. Now, the median salary for a worker in the United States is about $54,000. And that means that most people can't afford to spend half of their salary on a car. And yeah, sure, that's the national median wage for an individual worker. And yes, it varies by location, obviously, and also by state. But the average American's income isn't enough to pay for these new cars.
Bill.
And the median wage in this country ranges from $35,000 to $80,000 for individuals. And the median household income is about $75,000. That means for most people, a new car costs almost as much as they make in an entire year, which is crazy. It's just not practical.
It's not practical.
Now, I know you're probably thinking that you could still afford a new car by taking out a loan or a lease, but you just gotta hold on a minute because you need to be careful on how much debt you're taking on. There's some guidelines that people use to determine how much they can afford. It's like 10 to 15% of your take-home pay rule for car payments, basically. And some even followed the traditional car buying rule of 24-10, which you put down 20% down, you take a loan payment for more than 4 years, and have that payment be no more than 10% of your take-home pay. Now, personally, I believe in being more conservative with debt. I lean towards that 10% of your take-home pay guideline, and I don't want you to be struggling to make car payments and end up drowning in debt. You need to keep your debt obligations low and finances under control. We don't want to have 7 or 8 year car notes, which that's what they're up to now.
Everything's under control.
Now, let's take this as an example. If you make $70,000 a year, that means you'll bring home about $4,700 each month, and you could probably afford a car payment of about $470 if you're looking to buy a new car for the average price of $45,000. Now, assuming a good credit score and no down payment, that means a 3-year loan will cost you about $300 a month, pretty much. Now, I know a lot of people go for longer loans, like 72 months, 6 years, but that means your car payments would be less, and you want to try to pay off your car loan in less time, even though you'll have a little bit big of a payment and you're going to pay less interest. Now, there's a really long time to be paying for a car, which is 7 years, which is crazy. And 15% of new car buyers have a payment that exceeds $1,000 a month, which is insane. Now, that's a lot of money for a car, especially when you consider the other expenses that come with owning a car, like insurance, maintenance, etc. Now, if you're looking to buy a car outright, a general guideline is that the price should not exceed 35% of your gross annual income. That means with $70,000 a year income, you could afford a car for about $24,000. But let's be honest, that's a far cry from prices that we're seeing right now. Now, if you're trying to hit the average new car price of about $50,000, you would need a household income of over $130,000 a year, and that's the top 75% of all households. And if you want to keep your monthly payments to 10% of your income, which is what I recommend, you need to keep your car buying rule in mind. So when you see that average monthly car payment on a new car is over $700 or over $500 on a used car, remember that people are overextending their loans just to afford these prices.
Loan denied.
But you need to consider the true cost of owning, including insurance and all the other things, like I said. I used to think as long as the payment fit within my budget, I was good to go. But boy, was I wrong.
You are wrong.
Now, dealerships can do some funny math games to make any car fit within your budget, but that doesn't mean you can afford it. You need to consider the total cost of owning a car, and trust me, it's not cheap. There's a lot of other expenses. Now, you gotta consider a lot of other things. Depending on where you live, there's other expenses. Maybe you live in the city, maybe you gotta pay pay for parking. Maybe you gotta pay for other things. Maybe if it's a plug-in hybrid, you need somewhere to plug it in. There's parking fees. The list goes on. These additional items can add up substantially per month. So to get a better idea of true cost ownership, I recommend using an Edmunds calculator, and you could put in the car type that you see, which the real cost is versus the sticker price. And trust me, it's incredibly valuable to see. So every time you make a purchase or commit yourself to a series of payments, you're making a choice with your dollars. Now you're saying, I value doing this more than I value doing anything else with this money. There's nothing inherently wrong with how you choose to spend your money, but just remember that every choice has an opportunity cost and you only have a finite number of dollars. So choose to do the right thing with your money and not do something else with it that you're gonna regret.
No regrets.
Now remember, there's no good, there's no bad, and there's no right. And there's no wrong. So if you just want to be allocating your dollars in a way that you'll be allocating them to things that you value spending your money on in a meaningful way, then do it. But for many of us, we can't imagine a life without a car. It's a necessity in some situations, and sometimes it can be more of a luxury. I grew up in a small neighborhood where having a car was a little bit tough and there was a lot of public transportation, but I was pretty much a car guy. And I liked having cars. My dad had a car. To me, it was a big hobby. So I had a really hard time parking and whatnot. So it was a real city urban area. Now, some people live in a rural area and they need a car. So it's detrimental to their existence and livelihood. For me, it was a little different. I could walk to the corner, get a gallon of milk, and go back home, no problem. But here is also the thing. Having a lot of cars to only have 2 drivers is a luxury not everyone can afford. So you gotta ask yourself, do we really need all these vehicles? Maybe you can get by with just one. Depends. If you have kids, if you have a wife with kids and they have to take them to school. My wife needed an SUV, so we had to buy one that was affordable. And we bought it out. Now imagine all the money that you could make by investing that extra difference of a car payment in an SP 500 index fund, or maybe a whole life insurance policy, or maybe a rental property. It could probably turn into a nest egg or retirement. Now, I'm not saying that you should give up having a car altogether, but you need one to get to work, you need one to drop the kids off, you need one to do errands, and there's valid reasons. But you don't need a Mercedes, you don't need a BMW, you don't need a Lambo. You can get a Toyota Camry, something that's reliable, and I'm a big fan of Toyotas and Hondas. I drive a Honda, and I think it's super bulletproof and reliable as an SUV. So I suggest getting something like a used car. New cars lose about 20% of their value in the first year and 15% each year after that. So if you're looking to buy a car, better off to get a used one 3 or 4 years old off of a lease. And you still get a nice car with an extended warranty. Also, that way you can enjoy several years without having to worry about a car's depreciation or payment. And again, my car's a 2017, so is my wife's, and we're happy because we bought it used. Now I hope you like this video. Please give me a thumbs up and I'll see you in the next video.